Attention, please. Eastern Airlines Flight 19, now ready for departure.
Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're entering the vacation kingdom of the world.
There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. We call it EPCOT. Will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World podcast, taking you back to the vacation kingdom of the world, the way it was, and the way it is in your memories.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Retro Disney World podcast, the official podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society. This is episode 80, Holiday Time at Walt Disney World. So tonight we'll be going through all different types of holiday items that have happened at Walt Disney World, and I know Brian's been studying this. So Brian, I'm going to welcome you to the program as always, because you've been researching this. The holiday time is your time.
Season's greetings and salutations. There you go. There's my holiday edit.
And coming in from Ohio, Mr. JT Kuger. How you doing tonight, JT?
I am great. Getting ready for the holiday season here. We've got a blizzard coming soon.
Ooh.
That's the word at the end of this
Alleged.
week.
Let's say alleged.
I know, it's alleged. It's always the first one gets everybody all excited, and then we panic, and then people crash. It's just too much. We'll just wait and see what happens.
Well, see, JT, you kind of feel right now, and the area feels just like Hal feels when there's a hurricane coming, but it's 6 days away. They don't know if it's coming or if it's just going to veer off to the right or the left, or right, Hal? And how I know, and welcome to the show, Hal. I'm introducing you via a weather report, but
smooth transition.
That's a lovely way to do it. It keeps it topical.
Exactly.
I can't decide, Todd, if I enjoy your voice this way or not. It sounds like a little more silky smooth, like on
it is a little
holiday classics.
It's a Shadow Stevens type of thing, and I was outside all the morning.
Yeah, we're gonna have a Perry Como selection come up next, and
exactly
3, maybe 4
just
Ray Conniff classics.
select me for center square. That's all we need to do tonight. So, but yeah, and how I know you said you don't mind the hurricane, but you worry about blizzards, and where I am, I would worry about hurricanes and not mind blizzards. So it's very much reversed.
It's the thing that you're accustomed to.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, well, I'm going to turn it back over to JT here for the
Let me just jump for a second.
Oh, please.
Speaking for the three of us up here in the Northeast, do we really worry about a blizzard? I mean, I think
No.
we look forward to them, don't we? Like, it's like,
Yes.
this is going to be cool. I got my eggs, my milk, my bread, some stuff here to cook and bake. And
now I will say, I feel Brian and I are different than Todd. Todd has a slight worry of a power outage, because doesn't that happen to you in a blizzard? Whereas I've never had that happen in a blizzard.
It does, and we've got the generator, so it's never a concern. And, we've had some ice storms years ago where it was 5 or 6, 7 days, and that was before we had a generator. And those are the really, but they're few and far between. And I guess this is a good question for how. What is the concern of the blizzard? Because we could have a snowstorm come through here. I'm just telling you, and it dropped 24 inches of snow, and I'm at the grocery store the next day. It's not a problem.
I will tell you, having grown up in the western New York area outside of Buffalo and the lake effect snows, it's very different from what you gentlemen experienced.
That's true. Just what Buffalo went through.
I lived through the blizzard of 77 when we got 6 or 7 feet of snow dumped on us in a matter of hours.
Doesn't every city? We have one of those in Akron. I think ours might have been 76. Every city has the blizzard of whatever.
It's true. It's true.
And then they make like the Monopoly games based on that.
Too. Yeah, my mom and dad had that. Yes.
Yep.
But I had relatives in other years that were at the mall shopping, and the blizzard came out of nowhere, and they were trapped in the mall for 2 or 3 days. So yeah, it's a little different. And even I still have relatives that live in that area, and even in the last 2 years, it's like they had a blizzard come through, and my brother-in-law, bless his heart, he knew that there was an older woman that was across the street in her house, so he dug through 4 or 5 feet of snow. Because I don't think he couldn't get to the garage to get to the snowblower, so he had to do it with a
Shovel.
With a shovel, old fashioned. So he dug his way across because he needed to. He knew he needed to open up her vent so that way her heat exhaust could come out, because otherwise you could die in the house. So he went over to the side of the house and then realized it was on the other side of the house. So then he had to go all the way back over to the other side of the house, opened it up, and then it was still snowing. So by time he went to go back home, he had to shovel himself out, reshovel out the path that he had taken to get over to that. So that's just the kind of stuff where,
and correct me,
that's a no thank you.
A blizzard in the 70s seems much more scary than a blizzard now for some reason too to me. I don't know
Except
why.
it wasn't. Like they just kind of, I don't know. I mean, I guess you kind of
rolled
they
with
were
it?
tougher back then, I think, to a certain degree. Because now one of the things, I mean, I promise we'll get to the holidays here in a second.
We'll get to Disney.
But one of the things that they used to do, they handled things differently. Now we've come to expect, at least where we live, public works crews and state highway workers are prepared. There's pre-treating of the roads. They know when they go out there to plow and where to plow, and it was a lot more kind of catch as catch can before the standards developed. I read a really interesting thing in the opening note of one of the Vermont country store catalogs that came a few months back that talked about Vermont winters and how prior to the 60s, instead of plowing the snow, they used to tamp it down on the roads and leave it there all winter. And everybody just drove on the packed in snow because it didn't make any sense for them. They didn't have the technology and the wherewithal back then. And they weren't as obsessed with clearing the road as, you just drove slower, and the world wasn't in as much of a hurry, and people didn't work 2 hours from home and things like, just. So I think about that a lot now when I'm driving around, like, well, that's really interesting that's how they used to do it. But,
Right.
you couldn't, I'm sure insurance companies and a lot of other people wouldn't want that now because people slip and fall and sue you for $1 bajillion. But everybody expects it to, as a owner of commercial real estate, that's our business. I can tell you, you've got a 12-hour window to make sure all your sidewalks are bone dry no matter what has happened, or courts start holding you liable. So that's it. Tamp down your snow next time.
We're getting ready for, and if you're catching this in the middle of a blizzard, hang in there. They'll click.
They'll pass.
That guy will come dig up your house eventually.
Pour yourself,
or just jet off the house place. He'll
or
take you
anywhere
in, right?
in the South, that'll be fine. A nice southern vacation, nice warm weather vacation. Otherwise, put the fireplace on, pour yourself something that'll keep you warm, and enjoy the beauty.
So JT, what have we got in the mailbag? You're kind of like Santa right now, right? You got
I know
the mailbag.
I do
Santa
have a
thing.
velvet sack for this time of the year.
Throw it over his back.
Yes.
And
all right, so I'm going to take it back a little bit, and this is in honor. Now, I don't know how you guys celebrate I mean, I do, but it's everybody does something a little different, and we've developed a little tradition. When I think about this, it's kind of absurd, but we in the past, I think since we've been doing this 6-7 years now, we have a January trip to the world, to Florida, and for marathon weekend, and there's always the Meekum car auction is down there, so sometimes we go down there for that, different things, but this year we'll be down there for the marathon again. And I wanted to share, because that's coming, one of our friends, Steve, sent us. And Todd actually converted this. It's for the original 1994 commemorative marathon VHS tape, and it's on our YouTube channel. And I'm going to link it in the show notes because I think it's fitting for this time of the year, because we got some runners that listen to the show, and it really takes you back to the how small that event was and how big it is now, and the difference. So that's going to be our first. It's not necessarily a piece of mail, but Steve, I wanted to give him a shout out. I know he's a fan of the show, so thanks for that, Steve. Next up, I'm sure if you're listening to the show and you're not driving and you have one of our 5-legged goats, go ahead and raise your hand, because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there. Well, we got some interesting pictures, and we'll share some of those in the show notes, but our friend Greg wrote us, and Todd, maybe you can explain this one.
Yeah.
Greg's arrived with 2 red noses.
Yes.
And Greg decided to make his unique, and not the way you might be thinking. He took the red eyes and stuck them onto the eyeballs, so he now has the evil 5-legged goat.
The demonic 5-legged goat. Yeah, the idea was that, and the reason we asked to put 2 in there is they're very small little 4 or 5 millimeter beads, and
a spare,
like a Rudolph.
It was a spare.
Yeah, it was a spare. So if in case you lost it, bounced on the floor, you wanted to make your goat into a Rudolph, you had the capability to do that. So I appreciate the ingenuity, and I do want to apologize. We did have a number of goats break in transit. To some people, we always we account for a number of breakages. It happens each year.
Todd, nobody can make anything perfect like God. So
that's true.
Of course,
that's true.
Yes, the 5-legged.
But so consider if you did get a broken one, it's actually more unique.
Yeah.
The cracks were all unique.
But I will say, for the amount that we sold and shipped, it was like less than a 5% damage ratio in the mail.
Yep. And we got everybody traded out with a good old goat. So. Yep. And we might have those
a couple of
the scratch and dent goats.
Yeah.
I gotta do a
all
little work
repaired,
on them.
only not visible. It's going to be like the red dot sweater that George got Elaine on Seinfeld.
Yeah, like a CPO sales, certified pre-owned.
What's that red dot on there?
Yeah. Crazy Bob's broken repaired goat sale.
Blowing out goats, guys.
The manager's away and we've gone nuts.
All right, next up.
Thank you to everybody that donated,
and
because
we got some Mickey towers.
Some
out
holiday
there.
towers have shipped out this year. There's a handful left but most of those are gone, and people have. I love people sending us these pictures of, the 5 or 6 years now of ornaments that we've done, all on their tree.
We're going to talk about that here, Brian.
Yeah.
I got a couple here of these saved, and. But first, I wanted to get to this, and you guys could maybe speak to this. Jim wrote in, going back to Hollywood Studios here. He heard years ago, and he saw an article that the hat in front of the Grauman's Chinese Theater was put there for a specific reason. And he read that because Grauman's changed hands, the hat was put there to obscure the view. Any legitimacy to that, or is this just like an urban legend that has spun out of control?
So based on that letter, I started to do a bit of research into is there any possibility or shred of possibility that could be true?
Before you begin that, I want to say I have lived off the Hal Bowers principle, which is that architecture cannot be copyrighted. So I'll throw it back over to you. My immediate assumption when I read that was there's no way that's the reason why, because Hal has always told us that architecture can't be copyrighted. So
I think that was Todd that pointed that one out.
Yeah,
like prior to a certain year, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'd have to go back and find my sources on, but that's exactly what we found out, that architecture and shapes can't be copyrighted in terms of a replication of that building or facade or anything like that. So. Which is interesting, but it's very interesting when it becomes the shape of something becomes a corporate symbol is a different thing. Like for instance,
a castle,
like a castle with an arch over it. Yeah. So, in fact, we hear rumors that they're going to change the paint, the way that Sleeping Beauty Castle is painted at Disneyland. It's just going to be made of bars and blocks. Just like the video. So.
So I dug into what was going on from a corporate level and looked for trademarks and things like that, because that's where I think if something was going to happen, that's probably where it would have ended up, is in trademark land. What I did discover is, yes, in fact, Grauman's Chinese, there were a couple of times when that was handed off from one company to another. And this was past 1989, though. So park was open. But it does kind of align in the timeline of when the hat starts to show up. So I think that's probably why this became a big deal. And what I found were some articles in the Hollywood Reporter after the theater was sold to a group, and they realized that there were any number of souvenir, stands up and down Hollywood Boulevard that were selling, merchandise with the Grauman's Chinese Theater on it. And they felt, we have lost out on this humongous opportunity here, to try to capitalize on this asset that we own. But I think as Todd said, it's not copyrightable. So they attempted to trademark, I can't remember which variation it was, but they attempted to trademark something with Chinese theater, and then kind of a logo, more of a logo representation of the Chinese theater. It got rejected. They resubmitted. There's this whole back and forth over the course of 2 or 3 years of trying to get the trademark office to accept it. And ultimately they never did. And the theater was then resold to yet another group, and then eventually got sold to TCM. So during all of that back and forth, they never did manage to get the trademark put forward to that. Now, the fact that they were trying to do that, would that be enough to scare Disney into putting the hat there? I don't think so. The original, I think, location of the hat was supposed to be out by the water, and there were very grand plans for it. To have 2 Ferris wheels attached to it, and then the hat in the middle, so the Ferris wheels would be like ears. The big issue with that was funding. No one wanted to pay for this, for the icon. And I don't know who paid for the one at EPCOT, but ultimately the merchandise department paid to have the ear hat thing erected, which is why it became a pin trading and a pin sales station after the interactive kiosks were removed after the 100 years of Walt Disney. So it would have made no sense for them to build it outside of the park when they were trying to use it. They knew that they would ultimately use it to sell merchandise. So I think that's what it was. So I think the rumor comes from these rumblings that they were going to try to trademark the building. It never really happened, and so I think it was just a coincidence that all of this happened to go down at the same time.
And it really was from the mid 90s, they had been inching. It was like a 15-year inch away from the MGM aspect of the Disney MGM studios. In fact, we caught a very early souvenir reference, like 94, 95, something like that, where they just called it the Disney Studios in the souvenir video and did not mention the word MGM.
It was like blurred in that
a
day at the Disney MGM Studios.
So there was like a long. I mean, we all know there was a dispute over what the agreement covered over time, and MGM.
Oh, right. After MGM wanted to build their theme park in the Las Vegas parking lot.
So there was almost from the inception, there was a strained relationship, which is why when the 20 years expired of the agreement, that Disney just wiped MGM off the map from the park and said that's it. Now it's just the Disney Hollywood Studios.
And over time they had built stages that were in front of it. So I mean, it wasn't as if they were starting to do live event. It was a huge, beautiful open courtyard.
And although
somebody at some point is going to go like, we need to put.
And although the Chinese theater is not an MGM thing, it's not a Disney thing. And by the turn of the century, they really, they wanted everything Disney branded, and related to Disney. And so to do Walt's 100th birthday, and that was the flagship park for his 100th anniversary. The hat went there, and it continued its reign of terror for 15 years before they finally took it down. And it just, it's funny when they took it down, the discussions of the groups of people, the ages, the people who mostly knew the park with the hat were attached to it. This younger millennial generation were all upset. And those of us who had spent 20 years with the park without it were like, oh, thank God, this is finally ending. Like the Romans are finally leaving town and restoring local control. It's just.
What's weird about that park, though, is I feel like the icon has kind of been shifting all the time. Like for a minute, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the icon was the Chinese theater. Mm-hmm. And then it went to, kind of the Eiffel Tower here and there.
And the Tower of Terror.
Then we went to. Well, yeah, that came later. That came after the hat, because I feel like the hat was the big. Like you'd see the castle, the spaceship Earth.
All I'm saying is it's not a good thing to be the icon for that park, because it could be the first sign that your days are numbered.
I know. Don't say I love Tower of Terror. They can't I don't know. It's coming, I feel like, but I don't know when.
There's an interesting thing that's also was used for a period of time. If you remember the archway, every now and then they would use the archway, but they would also, on top of that, they had the I don't know what the official term is, the movie clapper, the time coder. That was used as well, with and without Mickey on it. So it was, look, the park has had an identity crisis since the day it opened, so the logo is nothing different. So.
All right, well, there you go, Jim. Appreciate that letter, and that's our little history on the sorcerer hat and everything else. Next one is just, I'll end up sharing these pictures, but Scott Clark wrote us. He got his goat earlier last month, and he has said it has a prominent place on his tree next to the Eiffel Tower. The pumpkin is there. He's searching for a Gertie, so if anybody wants to sell Scott their Gertie.
Yeah, we're short on Gertie. Sorry, those are all gone. Actually, I had mine, and it dropped the other day, and she's now very much headless.
Oh, no.
Will she be undergoing surgery, or?
I have to find the head first.
Oh.
It's in the basement.
I have to tell you,
it has rolled.
Where mine is packed, it gets a very protected place in the ornament box that gets stored away, and I always know when I lift that one layer over top of it off, it's like the first thing that comes out very carefully. I'm like, make sure Gertie gets on okay. And
Scott also sent us a picture here of he took his Carousel of Progress ornament onto the Disney Fantasy for Halloween on the High Seas. And some pretty good pictures of this we can share out. He's holding the pumpkin right next to the pumpkin display on the ship. Pretty clever to see that. So we've had one of our ornaments on the open ocean, which
it's been in international waters. All right.
I guess it probably was too on the journey here, but still it was very cool, Scott. Thank you for that. Next one, Richard and I have been communicating back and forth. Richard is another runner, but this one actually applies to us very well. Richard did the half marathon. It looks like Wine and Dine, and Richard ran the entire half marathon in a Roy's Cabin shirt. So very, very exciting.
All right.
And it rained, so Richard had to do it. I'm looking at this. I'm guessing he has it on a cotton shirt in the rain in a half marathon. So Richard, you are a better man than I am to get through 13 miles in a wet cotton t-shirt. That's baller right there. So congratulations on the run, Richard, and how he also did the I think it's the 10K in a Plaza Swan Boat shirt. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So that's Richard there. Last one. Here we go. A little update from our friend Scott Jensen on the filming of him on the Haunted Mansion. He did give us a little more insight. He said he wanted to share some pictures. Now, bear in mind, Scott, I don't think I'm going to share the pictures just because they're Scott took them on the down low, and while we don't want to totally share behind-the-scenes photos that were illegally taken, they're kind of blurry too, and you got to really squint to see them. But either way, Scott was aware that they were filming. He said it was when they were closing during the last few hours of the park, and he saw lots of people working and things like that. He did say, too, that when he went through the graveyard scene, there was just bright lights everywhere for the filming, so he could see all the clear raincoats on the ghosts and all that stuff in there. And he said the whole ride looks very different, but he loves that behind-the-scenes aspects. And he's got pictures. He told us he's got the director there. I mean, a whole film crew standing next to him on the ride next to the Doom Buggies. It's something else, but... as always, we're searching for more people that have been featured in either souvenir guidebooks or the must-dos with Stacy or anything like that. And I'm sure there's people out there that don't even know they are featured still to this day. So
all we know is everybody in those pictures is somebody. So if you're one of those somebodies, let us know.
So that's going to do it. We're going to get into the holiday spirit here, but lots of good stuff here. Actually, sorry, one more. Christian, thank you for your photo. He's a former Audio Rewind listener. He sent us a photo. He's got on his tree Walt's playing Retro Magic, the... what ride was the blue vehicle from?
Journey into Imagination.
Journey into Imagination. He's got the tower, he's got the goat, he's got Gertie, and he's got the pumpkin, all on a little mini tree. So we'll share that one out as well, Christian. Thank you for sharing it. All right, now I'm going to close the mailbag. If you would like to send us any letters, any pictures, any memories, podcast at RetroWDW.com. There's a chance for any letter or picture to end up on the show. And we try to get to all of them, respond to all of them, but we do get a lot, so please be patient with us.
Yeah, and I've got one correction.
Oh, gosh, you do?
That's a, yeah. So a couple of episodes ago, on Winter's Life Part 2, we were talking about I was talking about the Thunderdome and the Lightning and the Rays, and Dan Skinner, who has a much better memory than myself, wrote in and corrected us. And he said he happened to be there during spring break in 1988. So he got to go to the dome when it was like right after it was open. So he said it was built as the Florida Suncoast Dome, and it was done to attempt to lure a relocated Major League Baseball team or an expansion franchise to Tampa Bay. And he said he was here on vacation in 1988 during spring break, and it was under construction. And he was just like, what is that? What is that dome?
Just like Brian.
There? See?
Yeah.
What's happening in that dome?
So Tampa tried to lure the Chicago White Sox, the San Francisco Giants, or the Seattle Mariners, all to St. Pete. That failed. And then in 1993, when they were handing out the expansions franchises, MLB went with Miami and Denver instead of Tampa, so we got shut out. And so the Lightning began as an expansion franchise in 92-93. And they were just kind of handing out franchises willy-nilly in the NHL if there was a market. All you needed were like 10,000 fans in a temporary venue. So we got that. They played their inaugural season at the Expo Hall at the Florida State Fairgrounds, which I actually saw a couple of the games there. It was crazy. It's like one of those old style, just like metal shed buildings. Right. And the rink was in the middle and the bleachers, but it was fun. It was a really small, sort of more intimate crowd, and it was actually really, really cool. And he said the same thing. It was really a blast to see that. And he actually saw 2 of the Lightning games while he was on spring break in 93. So he's coming down to the Tampa Bay area and seeing some games too. Oh. So the Expo Hall wasn't even was a very temporary solution. And the Florida Suncoast Dome was available. So it was rechristened the Thunderdome, and it became the home of the Lightning for 3 seasons from 1993 to 1996. And also, it became the stadium for arena football, which I completely forgot about.
Oh,
that
my gosh. Yeah,
that was a thing.
It was a thing. That was a big push for that too.
Oh, I'll tell you, here it was really popular. Our rivals were Orlando, and that was the first kind of like battle. The first battle across I-4 thing was us versus Orlando, because we always finished first and second in the league, like in years that we played. So that's what they said. The reason the Thunderdome name really stuck was because we had the Storm and the Lightning playing there. And so it said the Thunderdome was a wild venue for hockey with record crowds watching the Lightning play in a stadium built for baseball. He says, my brother Doug famously mocked on the podcast by Brian for enjoying the Lance Tortellini Alfredo in the summer. Saw a game there in 1995. And the Lightning hosted an NHL playoff record crowd of 28,183 against the Philadelphia Flyers on April 23rd, 1996. And then finally in 1995, Tampa was awarded the last of an expansion team, the Devil Rays, who began to play in 1998. They opened up the Ice Palace in downtown Tampa, which is now called Amalie Arena. That was completed in 1996. And so the Lightning and the Storm moved to their permanent facility there in downtown Tampa, which left the dome open in St. Pete. And when we got our Major League Baseball team, they got sponsored by Tropicana. Orange juice became Tropicana Field. And the Rays made their debut there on March 31st, 1998.
Well, it's nice to see some entity in Florida continuing to embrace the citrus connection to Florida. Is it still called Tropicana Field? I don't remember.
It is still called
Very
Tropicana
good.
Field. They are headquartered in Bradenton, Florida, which is just 45 minutes south of us.
Well, I
So-
raise my citrus swirl and glass of fresh squeezed Florida orange juice to you all at Tropicana Field.
I got to bring something retro up for Tropicana. So, no, this is good. This is good. I would go visit my grandparents who lived down on the Jersey Shore, and it was a kind of a ritual that Grandma would make breakfast, usually bacon and eggs and pancakes and
Pork
stuff.
roll.
But the first thing she would always have ready for me was a Tropicana orange juice, but not any Tropicana orange juice. We're not talking a half gallon, we're not talking the gallon, we're not talking a quart. It was the little mini individual servings of about 6 to 8 ounces. They were in a plastic cup, had Tropicana print, and you would peel a little plastic tab back. The leftover plastic basically cut your upper lip as you drank from this special Tropicana. So I have fond memories of that. So now I've got to look this up. The Tropicana single serve retro
So
80s?
is that similar to when you would get orange juice at McDonald's and it would come with
no.
the little tin?
And was it that?
No,
Was
it wasn't.
that was the plastic cup with the peel off foil on top. What a
Right,
great way to
yeah.
get your orange juice.
This was a
We
magic.
still have those at school. Brian.
Yes, I'll be right over. I'm coming to
Imagine-
lunch tomorrow at your school.
Imagine a plastic pull tab, like a shape of a triangle that you would pull back on the top. I'll see if I can find a picture of one, because it really, yeah.
JT,
It was really
my
cool.
school, when I was in school years ago, they had the apple juice that way with that peel off top, except it was like half size of what McDonald's gave you. So it looked like an applesauce cup now, except
That's what we have. Yeah.
yeah. That's what I remember in middle and high school.
And the logo back then too. Remember, it had the little hula girl with the oranges on her head.
Oh, yeah.
Tropicana
So-
girl.
Yep.
All right.
All right, now I'm gonna go off on this hunt. So
All right.
I'll be back
Well,
in a
here,
little bit.
So we ready to talk about the holidays?
Yeah, let's move on to the holidays. So, hey, oranges is a tradition in my family. Always has been, and I always had an orange in my stocking every year. We talked about that on the movie night last year.
My mother Santa had an orange in our stocking every year at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
Top.
as I think I've previously mentioned, although I'm an adult, my mother continues to drop off a stocking every Christmas Eve. And I open it on Christmas morning, and 8 times out of 10, there's still an orange at the bottom of it. An orange and some Hershey Kisses are thrown in there too. Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes. But that was a very exotic gift back, when the tradition began. Getting citrus fruit of any kind was a real treat. So that's why they were a big stocking filler in the first half of for all the 20th century, but a very big deal in the first half of the 20th century.
Well, Brian, aren't you smart? You're the one that's going to kick off the rest of this holiday episode.
Well, so one of the I'll start off with a bit of my presidential history stuff, in that Harry Truman was once asked about Christmas as an older man after he left the White House. And he said, the thing about Christmas is every year you just do the same thing over and over again, and it gets to be kind of repetitive. And then there are things that happen that change. In his case, it was when he finally had grandchildren late in life. He said Christmas became fun all over again for him. And I think I think you're all at a certain age at different phases of your lives. Todd, your son's in the back half of his teens, and JT's got very young children, and Hal's got kids all over the age spectrum. But I think you find that there are things about Christmas that are repetitive and things that are exciting. So tonight, I'm sharing that with you because tonight what happens is we're going to talk about some things that we've talked about on prior holiday podcasts. But if, like us, we've talked about them, but you really don't remember what we said, or some of it sounds familiar, well, it's the holiday time. So we're doing some of the same things again. And some of it will be new information, and some of it will be just stuff you've heard before, but brings a warm feeling to your heart, because that's what we do at the holidays. We stick with traditions and things we miss and things we remember. And that I had that back-to-back Christmases, 1985, 6, and 7 was the transition of the toy Christmases. And my last toy Christmas was a gigantic one, because it was like Star Wars and Transformers and He-Man, like all at once. Was I see the pictures from those Christmas mornings, like, man, it's a giant pile of presents. And then like the next year, everything is like computer games and a new bike and stuff like you just had completely grown out of toys over the course of like a year. Do any of you have any recollections of that kind of transition? Because we're going to relate that to Disney.
Totally, yeah. There was, it was the computer, and then there was years of toys. Then it slowly morphed into more clothes and more. I remember when I started getting into the computer components. That was a big thing, and it kind of took up the budget.
I have a picture of me holding up the mouse I got for Christmas, like the computer mouse. And it was a big deal.
Like as a kid, you could open like 20 packages, and then one year I got a DVD burner, and that was all I opened. Like it was like, this is it, and it was like very expensive for the time, and that was a big gift.
Ditto. Did you say, JT, when you said toys, computer, clothes? I mean, that's exactly what I went through as well. Yep. The computer was a Commodore on my side, and I think it was 85 that the computer came in, but there were still some toys. My wife still bets a toy under the tree every year. There's always some sort of junk that I apparently need. That I love toys. So that hasn't. But now that you're older, you look forward to silly things like, oh, that's a really nice pair of socks. You're not throwing them over your shoulder. You're actually enjoying them. Like, I'm going to use this.
Well, you do reach a point when you get older where you appreciate a present. But we're also at a point, if I want something, I just go out and buy it for myself.
Just get it. Right.
It's like people ask, what can I get you? I don't know, nothing.
Now, there's another transition that happens, too. And there is you've gone through it once, you go through it again, you'll probably go through it a third time. We all grew up as kids and had that change. And then I had a child, and he's gone through that change. And as Brian said, he's on the back half, the back 9 of his teens. And my hope is to go through that same experience again with grandchildren someday. Too, so,
not too soon, though.
No, not too soon. And there's 2 reasons for that. Because some of the very books that I got on Christmas morning and for my birthday some years are upstairs. I read them to my son. I can't wait to read them to my grandson or grandchild or granddaughter someday. And I also have toys that I saved from my childhood as well as Colin's childhood. So
that's nice. Yeah, I have some stuff that has never made it out of it's all out of the box and played with. It's just I've held on to and moved from place to place and stored it. It's been lessened over the years. I've given some stuff away to nieces and nephews, but there's still some things I hold on to. So
I remember the year that I got an electric carving knife for Christmas. I just realized, that's it. We're done. It's all...
Were you 12 or were you like 35?
What age was this? Were you carving a lot of turkeys?
I'm kind of concerned at your age.
I had an Egon Spangler thing there. Like, I straightened the string slinky. just imagine how at like 10. Here you go, son.
I'm sitting here kind of speechless, to be honest with you, that most people don't ask for an electronic
context. What is it?
Oh, I did not ask for an electric carving knife at all.
Somebody decided he's a man now. He needs this.
Yeah, my parents were exactly. It was like it was the rite of passage. I would now need an electric carving knife because one day I was going to get out of the house and start, And
it was a subtle hint to push you out the door.
I still have the electric carving knife.
I bought an electric carving knife at, I don't know if I got it in the move when my mom was breaking up the kitchen or if I bought it at a yard sale. But I tried using it once when I made like a turkey breast and I just made such a mess. I'm like, I'll just carve it by hand. I'll just get the knife.
How actually ask for an electric razor?
But I remember my dad using the electric carving knife every holiday.
Absolutely.
I did finally a pro too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I went to YouTube and I looked up some videos, and when it was time for me to like I now carve the turkey no matter, if I go to my father-in-law's or whatever, because I watched them like, okay, I understand how to do it.
All right.
So it did end up paying off.
That's going to be a panel at presentation at Retro Magic. Will be Hal's just going to carve a turkey on stage.
Yeah,
I'll be at the carving station.
We're getting the carving station with the red lights.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do, what is the beef when you do the carving station?
Yes.
With
the roast.
The roast, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm your guy.
We're getting you the white hat and the coat and everything.
Perfect.
Why are the lights red? Is there a reason?
They're warming lights. It's supposed to make the meat
Christmassy,
and it also makes the meat look more appealing.
Yes.
Imagine that under like a blue light, like I don't
or a
want
green light.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nobody
the meat would
wants-
just look gross.
So
it's warm.
So we, again, we're all talking about Christmas as we remember, holiday traditions. And when we talked about doing this episode, I said I really wanted to focus initially on the lights of winter. And earlier tonight, we had put the call out on social media that we were going to be doing this episode, and we have multiple responses of people saying, please talk about the lights of winter. So we are going to talk about the lights of winter. And if you don't know what the lights of winter were, well, we're going to fill in those blanks for you. I have 2 segments I want to read from, but the big story here is the lights of winter were part of a huge transition there was that 2.5 year period where EPCOT Center transitioned to EPCOT 94, EPCOT 95, and briefly referred to as EPCOT 96 before they dropped it for the capital EPCOT with no year attached to it that it has been since. And the idea was every year they were going to renew it with lots of new attractions and offerings. 1994 is a big year, and there's a lot written about it out there and research available. Because EPCOT went through a giant holiday transition that year, it was the year that the Candlelight Processional, which had been performed on Main Street from the train station at Magic Kingdom, pulled up stakes and moved over to the America Gardens Theater in EPCOT Center, which could host them more often, wouldn't bring the Magic Kingdom to a stop when it was done, or when it was presented, rather, and crowds could continue to flow around World Showcase while it was being presented, and they could, as you all know now, they offer it multiple times nightly, and there's dining packages, and it was still in its EPCOT infancy back then, but that was being moved over there. So at the same time, there was a whole effort. I'm not going to say the holidays at EPCOT were muted, but they were not as prevalent as they were at Magic Kingdom for sure, because you walked into Magic Kingdom, and from the approach to the turnstiles out front until you got out of the hub, it was like Christmas Central. One of my critiques of Disney back then was once you got out of the hub and into the lands, it was like Christmas didn't exist, except for the Country Bear Christmas Jamboree. That great show, which we got a few emails to talk about, and we will mention tonight. I mean, we have talked about it before, but it's a crime that it's not still there. So anyway, let's talk about first the lights of winter. I am going to, rather than attempt to describe it all myself, give you 2 passages. One I'll say is coming from the Bible. The Bible is this gigantic book that I showed to the boys earlier tonight, and Hal's like, when did they publish this? It weighs about 35 pounds. It's called Holiday Magic at the Disney Parks, and it was published in 2020. It is a coffee table-sized reference book that is about 75-80% photos with some context added to it. So it's not quite encyclopedic, but it is comprehensive in that it starts all the way back with Disneyland in 1955 and covers the resorts and the different shopping areas. And if it happened during the holidays, it's likely in here. There's probably not as much detail as you'd want for our purposes, but I recommend you looking this up either on Amazon or Disney, or probably there are copies out there, but it does weigh about 15 pounds. I mean, this thing is gigantic. But I'm going to read to you briefly this segment in here from its encyclopedic mention of the lights of winter. And it says, no discussion of holiday decorations at Epcot would be complete with, this is on page 178 for those of you following at home, would be complete without mentioning the lights of winter, inspired by the Italian tradition of luminary and first seen in Disneyland Paris from 1993 to 2004. This arcade of twinkling archways stretched the length of the walkway between Future World and World Showcase for the holiday seasons from 1994 through 2008. Gracing the skyline as elegant and intricately sculpted sculptures by day, the arches came alive each evening, thanks to the placement of 30,000 colorful lights, dancing to a soundtrack of holiday music, mostly contemporary arrangements of classic holiday melodies. Think Mannheim Steamroller type stuff. They were a simple yet engaging spectacle that regularly drew a crowd, people happy to sit on a planter and be surrounded by the magic that enveloped them. Every so often a monorail train would glide between the arches, though it was hardly a distraction. Nearby, the Interventions fountain show was synchronized to the same music. Now, that's only part of this. That's the segment of it in the holiday magic at Walt Disney World book, or at the Disney parks. Of course, we don't stop there, so I'm going to now pull from the Morristown, New Jersey Daily Record. It was an Associated Press story done when they were promoting the holiday, all of the new holiday offerings in 1994 at the Disney parks. And there was a whole article written about the lights of winter. And I won't read the entire article, but I do want to mention that one thing left out of this book is that they also incorporated a new 65-foot Christmas tree in World Showcase Plaza with the light show, with the lights of winter. So what would happen is the arches, much like the Osborne family spectacle of lights, which if you recall in the first few years were static and had the carousel that went around and a few other things that had some motion to them, physical motion. But at a certain point, they then became the Osborne spectacle of dancing lights at Disney MGM Studios, and that's when that whole thing of the lights moving to the music started. that now your neighbor buys at Home Depot and puts on the front of his house and stops traffic in front of your house, broadcasting music and synchronized lights and everything every night. But back then, it actually started at Epcot that first year in 1994 when they offered the lights of winter. But like everything else at Epcot, it was a little more low key, not as overwhelming. So the article here from 1994 in the paper that Disney put out to promote the thing said that it included a merry and bright, dazzling new light bridge connecting Future World and World Showcase, of course, new nighttime fireworks, music, a light and laser show, 2 weeks of a candlelit ceremony that includes the Christmas story. Can you imagine if the candlelight processional was only 2 weeks now? I mean, they start offering it like the day after Halloween now, don't they?
It's not enough.
Yeah.
We demand more.
So it says the lights will be brightest at Showcase Plaza, where a towering 65-foot Christmas tree will greet guests entering World Showcase with messages of peace and goodwill translated in 40 languages. And that's still there. They have that tree that has all those little ribbons on it with the greetings in the different languages. The tree will be lit every night during a tree lighting ceremony. I don't know if they still have the tree lighting ceremony. I haven't been there in a while to seek it out. So there are people listening that I'm sure could tell us. But it used to be every night there, at least this first year that it premiered, there were representatives from the countries that, they would have those storytellers in each of the countries that would tell, stories of Christmas in Norway and Christmas in Mexico. So they would have representatives there. They'd have characters dressed in holiday garb from the countries. And they would do a whole, like, trumpeters and everything else coming with the Voices of Liberty choir. And they would do a tree lighting every night. And they would light the tree, which would then light the bridge, the lights of winter. And, that would start and run continuously throughout the evening. There were 30,000 lights that ran across these trellises that stood over the walkway from, Future World to World Showcase.
They're almost like lace.
They were.
way.
And so their
Yeah.
basis, it was mentioned in the other book, they wanted to bring a European tradition to Epcot. So there was a gentleman named Jim Heffelfinger, who I did reach out to, actually, and I haven't heard back from him. So in the off chance that we end up having a chance to talk to him, we might be able to tack that on as a mini episode or drop it into this one if we hear from him before we edit it. But Jim Heffelfinger worked for Disney for a while. He's worked for a lot of other entertainment companies based in Florida and consulting on places like SeaWorld and other places down there as well. But he was in charge of this project, and he said, just like our Christmas parades in America, many European countries kick off their winter holiday festivals with the lighting of arches that go over their main streets, just like this. And so they took the concept and brought it to Epcot. Now, of course, what we know is that they did it the year before in Disneyland Paris. And if you just search Lights of Winter Disneyland Paris, the first page that should come up, which I think is called Photo Magique, has a series of pictures of the Lights of Winter at Disneyland Paris, which are almost identical to Epcot's. So I'm sure these things were purchased. Like, Disney didn't design these things. They were probably purchased from a firm in Europe that specializes in providing these to towns and villages that want to put these arches up. Beautiful. I mean, I think all of you would agree when you saw them lit at night and the shows, they were just stunning.
It was one of the most, I mean, I am so careful about throwing around the word magical because I hate how it's overused, but it felt like it really was one of the most magical things I've ever seen. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And for something as simple as music and lights that would change, it was gorgeous. Just beautiful experience to just sit and watch.
And Disney really enhanced it because that planter in the front that leads to that bridge, which would occasionally become a cranberry bog during the Food and Wine Festival, but often has a topiary in it or something. They filled it with, and this was their own enhancement, these white lit daffodil type looking things that were just, I mean, the whole thing was
Take a look at
bird.
Yeah.
Dove or something.
Yeah.
There?
I just shared, gentlemen, a number of photos that my grandparents took. So if you look in our episode channel, there's a handful there for you to take a peek at.
So there was all of this going on. But one of the things you'll see in Todd's photos, and one of the theories why they were eventually retired, and I'll talk about that in a bit.
I know exactly where you're
Well,
going.
they don't look very good in the daytime. In the daytime, it's this, it looks like an under construction, piece of lattice framework.
Sure.
That kind of ruins your view coming into World Trade. But I'll tell you, it was worse in Paris, because in Paris, they were literally, the way they used to string the garland across Main Street in Walt Disney World for the first 40 years, they constructed it literally across Main Street in Paris, Main Street, USA. So you would walk through underneath the hotel there to get yourself into the town square, come around the town square, and you could not see the castle in Paris. You just saw this white unlit lattice work during the day until it got dark at night. And it lasted for 15 years, whatever it was, 10 to 12, 11 years over there, 12 years, something like that. But,
do we think it's also due to the clogging? Like, it looks like in these photos, like everybody just stopped and looked.
So here was the theories. That what happened was, Disney ran it 94 to 2008. In 2009, they just shocked everybody by when they released like their holiday stuff. They said, oh, by the way, Lights of Winter isn't coming back this year. We're retiring it because it's outdated and the technology's old, and we just don't think that it served its use, and we're not going to have it anymore. So, they just kind of said that was it. And there's no real, warning for people like this is the last season or anything. But those were the two reasons, Todd. The speculation is, one was it didn't look very good during the day. And the second is it had gotten to a point where people would go and stop, and it would bottleneck that entire walkway. So, you had to either take the right over towards Canada or walk by the Odyssey walkway over towards Mexico when these things were running.
That's not much better.
Because everybody would stop. But part of it was that it also looked good from the side. So if you were on the side watching it, it would have these beautiful reflections from the bodies of water on either side of the bridge. So you're right. Those auxiliary walkways, people would station themselves there to watch them from a difference with a different angle. Because there was a whole like do.
So there was like a show.
There was a whole show.
To
You can search them on YouTube. We'll probably link to a few in there. In fact, there's at least one video of ours that has it that Todd has posted. I know that's out there because I was looking today at the different kind of versions. And I know there's.
Go ahead. Did it affect the monorail track at all, or
no?
It didn't. The monorail didn't go through an arch or anything, did it? It just kind of went.
It went in between them.
Between them, you can see in the photo. It's kind of in between it.
Yeah, they didn't like arch over,
right?
Like you didn't drive through a.
So one of the other things that I have in my notes, it's speculation, but it was a very gentle attraction when it opened, befitting kind of Epcot's low-key World Showcase approach when it premiered in '94. Because if you remember, what Epcot would do is there wasn't a lot of holiday stuff in the front of the park. They would cover over the fountains of the nations, the Fountain of Nations, and turn that into a holiday stage. There'd usually be a poinsettia tree and a lot of like kind of decorations around the base, and there would be holiday performances there. The gospel groups and different Christmas music being performed there. In fact, we got a message today from David Carver tonight on Twitter saying, "I hope you talk about what was the name of the bell? What did we call it?" We're gonna have to scroll up in our conversation because he said it to me and I made a note of it. And the cast in bronze, this bell performance that is done now at Disney Springs. Was originally done in Epcot, and they would perform it on the stage that was placed over the Fountain of Nations, and then after the holidays they'd take the stage down and the fountain would go back on. But there wasn't a lot in Future World in terms of holiday stuff. So like World Showcase was where they did it, and it still tended to just be kind of decorating the buildings and changing the soundtracks in the different countries. But it wasn't anything like Magic Kingdom or what has now become the gold standard for the holidays, which is Disney's Hollywood Studios, is just fantastic. None of the parks even touch it, in my opinion, in terms of
Yeah, I happened to pull an entertainment guide from 1992.
I want to hear it.
So this
1992. Tell us about it.
Prior to the Lights of Winter. So I have the one from December 22nd to December 28th. So I was there right in the prime time of Christmas.
Okay, you were there Christmas week.
Yep. So here's all of the things that you would find all around the countries of the world that were Christmas themed. Nothing. It was all of the regular shows that you would partake of during the year. It was the same pearly dancers and same belly dancers at Restaurant Marrakesh and the Theater de Bologna, with a couple of exceptions. And so Carol Lawrence was featured with the World Dancers and the Holiday Splendor Orchestra. 2 performances on Sunday and 3 performances Monday, and then Wednesday through Saturday. And they did do the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. And they did a Walt Disney character show with Mickey, Roger, and the gang called From All of Us to All of You 2 times a day at the World Showcase Plaza. But that was it. There was no big Christmas thing to speak of.
Christmas was Main Street USA in the Magic Kingdom and in the Village, where they used it to, with the live nativity and everything else, to prop up the merchandise stores down there. And of course, that went through its giant transition at the same time to become the Downtown Disney. And
Yeah. Now I'm sure like the brass band probably played a couple of
Sure.
Christmas songs along with their regular repertoire, but
and the
it was
Voices
not
of
a
Liberty and
big
all that.
deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
sure, yeah.
But this was their big holiday coming out. So my other theory is that, you go to 94, Epcot is this, by some accounts, struggling park for its identity and didn't draw the crowds that some of the other places did. And they were always trying to do things to bring more people to Epcot because they have so much real estate to fill there. By 2008, Epcot has turned into Party Central with New Year's Eve raves going on in every country, and the drinking around the world thing had started. And this was a little early for the Instagram generation, but the perfect family photo, Facebook, all of that was kind of coming into its own in 2008, and photo sessions in the parks and just things that were not a thing in the 90s that with digital photography, when you could take 400 pictures to get the right one, all of which emerged in the 2000s, did become a thing. And so this kind of crowd bottleneck stopping attraction and everybody trying to get their pictures under the lights and the different colors and things. Yeah, I can absolutely see where they say, well, this is becoming a problem. The one thing I know is not the case is them saying that, well, it's outdated technology. That's why we had to do away with it. Because, as you know, by that point, and certainly in the years since, I think the Osbornes had gone all LED by then. But, LED lights for replacing, what were traditional Christmas lights, because this was an incandescent attraction, had become commonplace then. And by the time they brought out the Castle Dream lights, which I think were already up by this point, 2008, 2009, they had gotten very good at that, where the framework was not particularly visible during the day. That's one of those fascinating things about the Dream lights is if you're not looking for them, the castle still looks like the castle unless you're up close staring at the netting that's over it. To create those lights. So, they could do another Lights of Winter using an updated framework and updated lighting techniques that would not ruin the view during the day.
They could do something all over Epcot. It's like they do at a zoo even, like in the trees and all that, everything.
Right. We were just at the zoo. It's funny you mentioned the zoo. We were just at the zoo tonight. We must have passed under 3 or 4 different just trellises of lights that were canopies. And you could in one concept you could cover all of the World Showcase walkway with that, just overhead the entire way with these arches of lights if they wanted to, but they don't want to.
It's just it's down to what's going to make the money and what's going to. You've heard for years where the Osborne light's going to go next, and there was little rumors.
They were going to bring them down to Disney Springs, and they were the Osborne lights were going to come up somewhere else. And the reality of it is, listen, we've all been there. It is packed to the gills. They don't need to do a thing, and people are still going to come. So
and on top of it, the Osborne lights, that almost like if you went and saw that and then you walked over and saw the old Lights of Winter or something similar, it almost would be like a mental downgrade. You're like, well, this isn't.
There's part of that. The other thing I'll say about the Osborne lights, which like everybody else I love, there are so many. You just mentioned the zoo. We went to a local zoo tonight, but I've done the Philadelphia Zoo. There are parks. There are parks in Philadelphia now. There are a lot of places you can get. The botanical gardens I went to not far from you, in I don't remember what city it's above Clearwater, I want to say. The Florida Botanical Gardens I went to.
I didn't know they have I was actually looking to go into that because they have a huge display.
I went the first year they didn't have the Osborne lights, and I remember tweeting and telling people, listen, if you missed the Osborne lights, come here. But there's a lot of people on Twitter and Instagram sharing these, coordinated, synchronized light experiences in these community spaces now that I don't know that Osborne lights was great, but when it started, it was unique. And now I don't think it's so unique. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing that you can experience a lot of other places.
That's true. It's gotten so more inexpensive, over the course of time.
It's become a worthwhile investment for, I mean, who wants to go to the zoo when it's 25 degrees out? Not a lot of us, but we were all out there tonight. Thank God they had hot chocolate with Baileys in it that you could buy, but we were all out there tonight freezing ourselves, walking through to look at the lights, and it was great. I do want to add one, before we move on to other attractions, I want to add one coda here to the Lights of Winter. They did not leave Epcot after they were taken down in 2008. The trellis and the lights sat thermal-wrapped backstage for more than 5 years. They were seen by marathon runners on the Epcot route when the Walt Disney Marathon would take you backstage at Epcot. Except most people didn't know what they were looking at because it was just this giant stuff wrapped in blue. They were finally removed somewhere between 2014 2015. Todd could probably give us the exact time frame by looking at this guy. Except I don't remember which country they were behind.
Aerial photos.
I did drop an aerial photo in the chat last night so that we can include it in our so if you scroll up you'll see it. But they were there for years. They sat backstage, and then they finally removed them after 5 or 6 years. They probably went to the scrapyard. So
maybe that's what made the Magic Kingdom parking.
The what?
Toll Plaza.
The toll. Yeah,
Plaza
they removed.
Oh, that's right. They built it from that.
They were refashioning the archway
that,
of the Toll Plaza at the Magic Kingdom.
I remember one year, thinking, I got to figure out where these things are controlled by, and I finally started tracing the wires, and finally
only
saw,
you, Hal.
Get out of here.
where all the wires.
Wait a second. You started a trellis.
You traced the Lights of Winter's wires.
Yeah, and then
like Kramer.
Yeah, why not?
I found this rope and I just
keep
started
pulling it.
tugging on it.
There's these lobsters.
Three lobsters. Where did you follow to walk us down this path?
It finally took it. They all ended up terminating in this large green box, maybe 5 feet by 5 feet, and maybe 5 or 6 feet tall. Just a plain green box, which had been weatherized, and that's where the control system and probably the audio and all that stuff was in there. And, there was a bunch of power stuff attached to it, but it was neat to go oh, okay, there's where the brains of it. And it was 5 or 10 feet off the path, once you got up to, I think, where it split out into, World Showcase. So it was funny. There's probably a very simple computer, attached to it by today's
Todd's
standards.
Old Commodore 64 from Christmas 1985.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. It's
what's in it? It's even funnier. That's the way of Epcot, isn't it? It was like a whole box and a whole thing, and now you can go buy it at Lowe's for $20 and do that in your front yard.
There was always this rumor that the first version of Illuminations was run off of an Apple II computer. I don't know if that was. I remember vaguely seeing some show about that.
That seems seriously underpowered.
No, that's accurate.
Really?
Yeah, that was a. There are posts about that from somebody who was there at the time, and that the original. Now you're talking. I mean, it might have been the it would have been mid 90s, right?
Or probably the first versions.
Yeah.
What did it have to control? It would have controlled the timing.
Well, the laser lights, because they lit up the countries and shot things around. I mean, just as an aside here, that 94 is also, in addition to the tree and the Lights of Winter and a bunch of other stuff, that was the first year that Illuminations got its holiday tag, got the actual holiday tag, so that would run where Let There Be Peace on Earth would be the 5-minute additional holiday tag premiered with the Lights of Winter and everything else that they added to Epcot in 1994, and the Candlelight Processional.
So I have this book. I think it's from 96.
Okay.
It says they have the world's largest display of poinsettias. at Epcot as well. So there's something you can enjoy.
Well,
Well, there's a picture from my grandmother too. The whole front in front of where the fountain was all
poinsettias there. All
Yeah,
poinsettias
beautiful.
around the stage at that was over Fountain of Nations. I mean, that was entirely surrounded by it. And then in the countries, a lot of those beds that they fill in, during Flower and Garden and something like that, but they were heavy poinsettia all around. World Showcase and then the flower gardens and.
It's interesting to me then too. We're talking about this lights and the control and all that, and they were able to make that happen in that era with all that technical, complicatedness in a computer, and we can do it so easily at our home now. What are they doing now? You think about what they put into that to make that happen. Then they should be able to make the Spaceship Earth levitate at this point.
No, they started to use the Apple Lisa. It's working just
Well,
fine.
we're still.
I think part of it back then, and a little bit of digging, we could probably determine, especially if I'm talking to this guy, we can probably determine where they bought this from, because it's an off the shelf thing that they bought. Now they may have built the synchronization module for the music. That could have been something they did. But, back then they used to do a lot of that. And now it's all like, it's mostly off the shelf stuff now. Like it's...
I'll say $20. The reason they couldn't do it is because the company that built it went out of business.
Probably.
So there was nobody to service it anymore.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
When I say off the shelf, that's not meant to be derisive. I mean, Bob Gurr has told us how many times, when he custom built things for Disney, he built them with readily available parts, not stuff that had to be fabricated.
Yeah,
20 off the shelf and put it together and make something unique.
There's this belief that Disney out there has like these forges in Norway, and they're just like forming
giant
all these
factories
custom parts.
where everything that's there is custom built. And
I hate to tell you,
we'll take the Egyptian male animatronic over there. We need 3 of them.
We need 3 of those. You're never gonna sell another one in your life, but I'm glad you have them in stock.
DC6 was actually making light strings. That's what the.
Well, Tom Nabby, he just sat there and he hand wove them.
I'll bet you though he'll tell us. Their rule was 10% overage on everything there, so he probably had a couple of spare trellises just in case they needed them.
I wouldn't doubt.
Spools.
Right there in the warehouse.
He might have them in his house in his basement today.
Somebody bought them from property control when they shut it down, and I'm sure it's like over it's in John Stamos's backyard now or something.
Probably, yeah.
So Brian, I pulled a couple of brochures from back in the day that has some pricing for packages. So these, obviously these packages today are huge, where you can, go get dinner and then see, the candlelight processional, and you have special seating, and they're like VIP packages. So they started doing that as early as like 96. And so here's a sample of some pricing for the candlelight processional dinner package back then. So it ran from November 26th to December 24th. So it was 1 month.
Okay.
By this point, they had expanded it, because when I look back at some of the earlier things, it's like a week. It's like Christmas week.
They used to do it just once. Like back when Rock Hudson and them came, it was like a single performance. And that was it. They did the candlelight processional one night a season, and that was
they were done.
But it's so funny. You're saying this is 96. If you recall, the article in 94, it was only 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks of the candlelight processional they were doing when they moved.
There you go.
When they moved it over to Epcot. Now it's up to 4, and just 2 years later.
So I think this could be. I'm trying to figure out if this is 96 or 98. But here you go. So if you want to do the dinner package, it's gonna set you back $35.95 for adults, and $8.95 for children.
That includes dinner.
So that's dinner at a select Epcot table service restaurant, featuring a special holiday menu plus reserved VIP seating, and a 20% discount at Epcot shops on the day of your visit with free preferred parking.
Is that your only commentary on the Epcot Candlelight VIP? Because I have a thing to say about it.
Well, also, now that's if you have admission.
Okay.
If you don't have admission, if you need to buy admission with it, that'll run you including admission, that'll run you $51.95.
So that would be an after 4 admission or like an all day admission?
That's an after 4 admission.
Okay, I get it.
And $24.95 plus tax with children.
I will make a confession that may put me on some people's naughty list for this Christmas, because I know there's a lot of people who love candlelight, and I think candlelight is beautiful. I did the package once. I had my 10 or I don't know if he was 10 or 12 at the time, but I had my nephew with him, and he had been such a good kid all day, and we had waited for boring attractions. He wanted to go on a roller coaster. We never got to go. We were at EPCOT. I think we didn't get to go on Test Track. Like, we'd been doing things, and then we had this candlelight dinner package, and then we sat down. Like, all of a sudden, the dinner package, like, you feel like, oh, you bought this package. You just walk up at, 10 to 7 if it's a 7 o'clock thing, and my seat's reserved. All right, you just walk it. No. Your dinner's at like 5, and then you're in this line. People start a line for the people that had the VIP package, and you were in line for like an hour to be sure that you weren't sitting in the very back anyway of the reserve section.
Oh, geez.
So I remember the one time that I paid for the VIP package. We got in the line, and then I turned to my friends that were with me. I had my nephew. I said, listen, I'm going to jump out of line. I'm taking this kid on some rides. Like, he's been a good kid all day. He has not gotten to ride anything. During the period of time that I left the line and they watched Candlelight, I was on Test Track. We were on, I don't know, we went on like 5 things. We were soaring and all this, this is all this stuff that we got to do, because like all the attention had come back to World Showcase. So we just kind of ran through Future World, going on all these attractions that we just hadn't done that day, because I think we had a sit down lunch when we got there, and we did like one thing that we waited a long time for. And then we ended up at the dinner and then in the line for candlelight. I'm like, all right, I gotta,
just what every young boy wants to
like
do,
he was being so patient. I'm like, I got to get this kid on some rides. Like, this is not fair to then make him sit through the school pageant of, the nativity here.
So you didn't ever see candlelight?
No, I've seen candlelight. I mean, I've been, I've been there. I just sit like a schlub in the audience. I don't buy the dinner package, but it's just, for me that particular night, I was like, I can't believe I paid for this like VIP package, and it's not like, oh, well, you're in the front 20 rows or something. All of a sudden, it's like, if you don't wait in this line for the next hour until we start letting you in, like a VIP, let me in right away. Let me just at least sit on the bench for the next hour.
Yeah. And if I want to go leave and come back, you should save my seat.
Yeah, no, it's just a different line to wait in. So that's my candlelight story. Beautiful and majestic as it is. That night we skipped it, Joseph and I skipped it to go ride a bunch of stuff. Any other packages in the hotels or anything else?
Let's see. So from 1992, so before the big hullabaloo happened, if you wanted to get a hotel stay, and the Jolly Holiday was available then. So that show that was in the Contemporary, like that was available in 1992. If you want,
I've seen it, so I have something to say on that. But go ahead.
Yeah. It says resort hotels cater to your happiest holiday fantasies. Isn't that nice?
I'm a resort hotel catering to my happiest holiday fantasies. Well, it depends on the age bracket what your holiday fantasy is.
Right.
I'm just picturing that scene where Clark Griswold is looking out the window at the pool in National Lampoon's Christmas. That's right. What he was hoping for Christmas was different than what Bobby Sue was waiting for.
Yeah. So here's
Ruby
your
Sue.
options. Here's where you can
Sorry
stay.
about that.
You got the
Ruby
Grand
Sue,
Floridian,
yes.
which is recreating an old-fashioned turn-of-the-century Christmas. Disney's Yacht and Beach Club Resorts, which is a holiday on the New England coast. Disney's Contemporary Resort, which is Christmas in the Southwest. So they must have still been leaning into the Grand Canyon Concourse.
Well, that was the year they had that Southwest-themed Christmas tree
right, the
balloon
and
hanging
stuff.
from the
Yeah.
Grand Canyon Concourse. That was when they were still doing the
right.
Southwest thing.
the Disney Inn, which was a holiday at a charming country inn.
Right.
And then the Disney's Port Orleans Resort, of course, was Christmas with a Cajun flavor.
Yes.
And then, so here, your 2-night packages. A 2-night package would range from $139 to $209, depending on where you were staying. A 3-night package would run you $179 to $289. And if you were the baller and got the 4-night package, that would cost you $369 to $519. And with this package, you would get festive accommodations. Now, I don't know what they did to make the accommodations any more festive than normal, but admission to the Jolly Holidays dinner show, a holiday reception at each resort featuring live entertainment and refreshments, and of course, free transportation throughout the Walt Disney World Resort.
Of course.
Oh, it also included if you did the 4-night for $369 to $519. Not only did you get, the festive accommodations, the Jolly Holidays dinner show, the holiday receptions at resort, and the free transportation, but you also got unlimited admission to all 4 parks on the 4 days that you were there.
Wow, there you go. It's a nice package.
What year
Yeah.
was this?
Oh, and Pleasure Island.
Wow.
That was 1992.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
holy cow, what a deal!
That's the equivalent $800 now for 4 nights and park admission.
Yeah, there were still good packages then. It really, I feel like it didn't explode. Am I right? Until the 2000s, like through most of the 90s, you could still get a very good package, especially in the off seasons when they still had off seasons. And now the off season is literally when Florida kids go back to school until like the week after Labor Day. You have like a 2 or 3 week period where it's 140 every day, but the parks are lightly crowded. And that's it. The rest of the year, it's, Black Friday shopping at Walmart at 5 a.m.
Oh, did you have something to share, Brian, about Jolly Holidays?
Yes, I
you
know.
got to see it?
I know in prior holiday podcasts, I mentioned this, but as I said, we'll revisit it. I saw Jolly Holidays the last year that it was offered, which I believe was 1995. We went to the dinner show, and I reflect on it from time to time. I remember enjoying myself, but it was in the Contemporaries Convention Center at that point. There was a large stage that, they come out and it was about an hour long. But if you can imagine any of the older Christmas specials that you see rebroadcast or catch on YouTube from Danny Kaye or Bing Crosby or Judy Garland, it was very much in that vein. If you've ever seen the Rockette show at Radio City Music Hall, very similar in terms of it was a variety show, stage presentation. But this, and I don't know how many years it had this, but there was an ice skating platform in front of the stage. So portions of the show included both ice skaters and I believe characters on skates coming out into a fairly small sized rink around which all the dinner tables, round banquet tables were set. So what I remember about it is, we went to the dinner. We were kind of dressed up for it, but you go into the ballroom and you're seated at a banquet table. There were 2 of us, me and my friend Rob, and we were seated with 8 or 10 other people, like cruise ship style, where you're just seated.
Hello.
You're just seated with other people. It's, hello, I guess we're having dinner together. Which was
I'm in the Aloha deck.
Yeah, exactly. And so that I remember being a little like it was not an experience I'd had a lot in life. So that was weird to, when you go to a wedding and you're just like the friend from out of town and you don't know anyone in the family.
How do you know the groom?
Yeah, so you're like seated with 8 people you need to make small talk with, or normally in those situations, you don't make small talk with. You all just kind of whisper to each other and eat your roll and salad, and dinner came out. I don't even remember if we had a choice of what to eat, but dinner was a plated dinner that was served, and then the show was on while all this was going on, and your ice cream parfait or whatever would come out at the end and they're singing "It's a Jolly Holiday" with Mickey, and there are videos of it online if you want to see what the show was.
My grandparents loved it. They went there multiple years.
And so something I said before we went on the air tonight was, now looking back on it, and I probably at the time, but not as much. I mean, I thought it was, that was fun. I recognize now by 1995 how I think the year I saw it, which was just last year, was how dated it was. How for the audience, if you were bringing kids, I mean, they're sitting there watching, what is going on? Like, this is, because it's like straight out of 1968. You expect to see Bob Hope coming out entertaining the troops with this show. Like, it's it was just very, very dated, and I understand why they retired it.
But what's funny is it was dated for its time too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I think it catered. Look from my family who went down and saw it. It was my grandparents. My parents had no interest. It wasn't stuff they grew up with and liked. But my grandfather always talked about, that shows with dancing and Danny Kaye.
That said,
okay,
I think I won't say an identical offering. I think a modern offering, because they do stage shows very well now. You see them in front of the castle and in Tomorrowland and at EPCOT and over in the studios. I think if they did a modern dinner theater 45-minute holiday show, using up one of those hotel ballroom spaces and taking it away from event offerings for the month, where nobody could book it for conventions and stuff. I mean, they could make a mint on people now. Because it would be a way to see it without having to go to the parks.
Right.
Where you could do a Disney night. I think it would be, they could charge $140 a ticket and people would pay it to go and see this hokey show of Mickey hopping around and ice skaters. And of course, now there'd be projection mapping and things like that that would be part of it. But
I'd be exhausted after 5 minutes, but that's just me.
It's
just never been my style.
I get it.
So.
I get it. Can't all be Billy Joel, my friend.
So, well, we had this, we had this offline discussion about theater and things recently that we all discussed.
Todd, you've happily and helpfully shared this photo of them roasting chestnuts. It looks like an outdoor area just outside, maybe the back of the Grand Floridian. Is that what I'm looking at?
It was under the porte cochere as you came.
Oh,
in.
right in the front of the hotel.
Right in the front is
was
where they were
roasting
doing it. Yep.
chestnuts as you walk in. Right
That's
where
one of my Yeah.
You just show up, get out of your car, and they hand you some hot nuts, huh?
You get the hot nuts
whenever
you want them.
My recollection was they sold them to you. I don't know if that was the case.
Oh, okay.
I know when I did the Osborne Lights one night back in the 2010-ish, maybe around then. They sold them on the streets. They were from the street cart, they had roasted popcorn and roasted chestnuts, and I had never had roasted chestnuts, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna buy a bag, and I just remembered that it tasted like dirt, and I ate one or two. And I'm like,
that's because it was roasted on an open fire.
It was, and it was literally roasted on an open fire. But yeah, it is an offering that has kind of fallen out of favor. In fact, when I was looking for some press mentions in the newspaper archive of Disney resorts or Disney parks offering actual roasted chestnuts during the holidays, I didn't find any, but what I did find was a column written by someone in the 90s, one of these food columnists, who said that, roasted chestnuts the chestnut had fallen out of favor, and they were advocating its resurgence as an ingredient and offering. That the reason it dominates chestnuts roasting on the Christmas song and all is because it was so prevalent, and it was a fancy holiday offering back in the day, and it is no longer. And I can tell you it is no longer because they don't taste particularly good. So
This is Grand Floridian. This picture you shared, right?
yeah,
That's correct, sir.
so
Yeah, that's typical.
So what
That's just
the Bible here, this giant book I showed you earlier, mentions that yes, in some hotel lobbies they would roast, Disney roasted chestnuts at the time, and of course this man's in Victorian garb, and you expect a Dickensian street urchin to come up and beg him for his leftover chestnuts at the end of the night or something.
Please, sir, I need some. I'm so poor.
Something for the poor, alms for the poor, sir.
He's like, "Good afternoon." Oh, so that you see, I guess this sort of breaks with it being a Florida themed hotel. The roasted chestnuts. still don't really,
so
I know it's supposed to be turned to this.
So Todd, is this dating right? Was it 2000 that this picture was taken?
No, that date code was not working.
Okay.
My understanding is that this was. I have this listed
the picture
as
above it is-
1994.
Yeah, the picture above it is 94. So I'll say this: the book does have a few good pictures of the lobby in the Grand Floridian from 89 and 92. So those early years that it was open, if you remember one of the prior holiday podcasts, we talked about the beautiful poinsettia tree that was there for a good 15 years. The three shaded pink, white, and red poinsettias that towered over the lobby there at the Grand Floridian. The first years it was actually, there were fake candles all around it, and that was it. And then in subsequent years, they added like garland to make it look a little more festive, a little more Christmassy, a little less staid. But those earliest years, they had those medieval-looking court jester mannequins and the horse. It is the scariest stuff you've ever seen. And it's funny because the one picture in the book, I'll have to take a picture of it so we can include it in it, does have like an aerial shot, and it shows you at least at 1 year, instead of being at floor level, where people used to take pictures next to it, like just looking at them like, in horror, like comedy pictures next to them. They put them up in a display, almost on like a little drum stage next to the tree. And the horse was, from what I could see, the horse was gone by that point, and it was just like Bravely Bold Sir Robin's minstrels kind of. But it's just the weirdest thing because, of course, it's set at turn of the century, the end of the Victorian era, the beginning of Edwardian era. No one dressed and danced and acted like that, because they're all dressed like the Santa's elves in A Christmas Story, and that's not supposed to represent reality. I mean, they might have dressed like that in the 1700s, but not by 1900. I mean, no one was running around dressed up like that.
Can you imagine coming in with your Mickey bowl of hot chestnuts, trying to choke those down, and then you see that scene? You're like, what did we just do?
I will say one of the big differences back then was in all the pictures you see, even in videos you'll find from people's the lobby wasn't crowded. You had time to kind of amble through and see the display and look at the tree and take a picture, and there were shops that lined it that have, since been either closed or turned into a soap store or a restaurant or something. It was just a lot chiller place to be back then. And that's, one of my ongoing critiques of the Grand Floridian is that you walk in there now and it's like Grand Central Station the day before Thanksgiving. There's just gads of people everywhere all the time. So maybe when they do the redo that they've planned, when they refurbish it and make it look like a Hilton, people won't want to go there anymore, and it'll revert to its former self. There's your bit of current content for the podcast, folks.
Do you have any? I remember just some like Polynesian sort of plants and stuff in the Polynesian resorts during the holidays.
They would add Christmas colored tropical plants to the central display at the Polynesian. There is a lot of pictures in here.
Okay.
But I stayed there actually when the lobby was still there with my nephew in maybe 2013, and in addition to all of that, tropical or like orchid garland that they would put all over, they would add a lot of colorful flowers to the central fountain display.
I just there were 2 pictures that my
Yeah.
grandparents took. I added those.
And
to
so
that,
you can see there that they're, and then
Yeah.
usually is a few smaller trees that would have like bird of paradise flowers and stuff like that in them for places for you to take pictures. And one of Todd's, there's a grand piano that, and it looks like
look at
all the borders on the roof up there, the woodwork on the
Yeah,
roof,
look at that.
they lined
Oh
they
my
lined it
gosh.
all with flowers and all. But
spare no expense, Clark. No
well,
expense.
those budgets were different back then. But yeah, so I mean, and then of course the contemporary, would change all the lights on the exterior to red and green alternating lights. Had the large red cone tree out front for a while, where the flagpole is, on the drive-in, and then inside the contemporary for 25, 30 years they had that original tinsel
Yes.
tiered tree, and then they messed around with the balloon and the different trees that they're or displays, and then they had the giant wreath, and then the giant the giant wreath, the Mickey shaped wreath, was there for years, and I want to say about 5-6 years ago they stopped putting that up, and I did at the time hear from someone there that it was one manager decided, nah, we're not going to do it, because it was like $10,000 or whatever to put it up and take it down, and he just decided, no, we're not going to do it anymore.
I think the tinsel tree just stored flat. They just set it down and it all just fell to the floor.
You wonder how. I wonder if it had like a Russian doll thing where it all kind of so that it was just one loop at the end, but.
Just tip it up.
I
and lean
can
it
tell
against the
you
wall.
there are enough people that listen to our podcast who worked there in maintenance and other things, or their dads did, that they can ask how that tree was stored every year.
I feel like we should make one of those, huh?
I mean,
There's an ornament idea.
I mean, that would, I don't want to get into costs here on the show, but
No,
it couldn't be more than
I
50 or
think-
60 cents to have them made,
Yeah, well, then we'll spice it up,
I'd rather make our Lights of Winter display that you push the button.
Oh,
and
now you're getting into money. Now
Yeah, I know. I've said all along I'd love to see a
pre-
Lights of Winter display, but
Pre-recorded music.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
licensing, electronic import fees, shipping batteries. There's all kinds of problems.
Oh yeah, that don't even remember the battery fiasco we got ourselves into.
Battery fiasco 2018.
Yeah, absolutely, battery.
The great battery fiasco of 2018.
It was a time when you didn't know what you could do.
Well, who else has anything to offer here? I mean, there
I can offer. I've only ever been and experienced any of the parks, Brian. The first time ever to experience them during the holidays was actually with you, my friend.
Oh yeah,
When we were back down there in November, that was the first and only time I have experienced the parks in the holidays.
Are we allowed to tell how we saw the Christmas parade? I showed them how to
reservations.
I showed them how to stay and watch the Christmas parade without a ticket back when it was still possible to do that.
What do they do now?
Well, there are a lot more
Checks.
I mean, as a person who has purchased Christmas party tickets, you appreciate that they're a lot more aggressive in trying to make sure that anybody in the park without a ticket for the Christmas party is not staying. But what
They do just bug you, show your wristband.
well,
all
the
time,
wristband
or-
is what they look for. And the weird thing was we had a friend of the podcast and the organization with us that night who was wearing a T-shirt. It was a cold night, so most people had jackets on. So they couldn't see if you had the wristbands on or not, really, because they were obscured by people's jackets. And so we had gone to dinner at Skipper's Canteen, kind of come out. Adventureland's kind of an easy place to hide, but I had kind of told Todd and his wife and our group, I said, listen, once you get out towards the hub, like there's eyes everywhere, like looking for people like you. So I said, the key is keep your hands in your pockets because it's cold and keep moving. And so we eventually found our spot on whichever of the center streets has survived, east or west. I can't remember which one it is.
It was the East Street.
East Center Street. And I think we ducked into the Arribas Brothers store or something like that. And then just as the parade started to come out. We came out and just kind of found a spot on the corner there and watched it go past, and then followed it out the door. We didn't try to experience any other Christmas things.
No, we didn't do attractions or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was all...
Yeah, but
I
they
can't believe you got Todd to see a parade.
Well,
it was very nice.
You know what? I always tell people the Christmas parade is totally different than anything else you see. I mean, the Christmas parade is worth seeing. Well, the Halloween parade too. The Halloween parade is great. But I'm not as. I think we're all not as big a fan of the daytime parade.
Correct. Yeah.
But
whatever that last one was that ran was pretty cool.
With the
sort of
flaming dragon
steampunky one with the flaming dragon. That was actually kind of.
Wasn't that Festival of Fantasy? I think it was called. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm not a parade person, but I was like, okay, I can appreciate this. This is
I remember seeing the parades on my early trips there. Like it was like a rite of we'll stop and watch the parade, and we know that was the major attraction the first 20 years. Because every 8mm film we get is 60% parade.
How about the rainy day cavalcade?
And the rainy day cavalcade.
There you go. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, let me throw in. This is funny. I ran into some documentation about what they did at Disney Village when it was the Disney Village.
So much there. Yeah, the Buena Vista Village and Disney Village. Yep. Go ahead.
So we've talked about in previous episodes the. Oh my goodness, what'd they call it? The spectacle and magic of Christmas? Gosh, I can't believe it's fallen onto my head now. I've watched it so many times. Where they would do the nativity.
I'll look it up in the Bible because I can't remember.
Yeah, there you go.
Majesty. I think it's Majesty. I think it's the Majesty.
That's it. The spectacle and majesty of
Christmas or something like that. Yeah.
So after that was retired, though, I've got some things here. So November 23rd to December 31st, they say shopping for the holidays has never been so much fun. The Disney Village Marketplace is wrapped up in a tropical Florida festivities this year, and with so many fabulous stores and restaurants, it may be the only place you need to shop. So you can see Santa's Arrival, which said was a fast-paced show. Probably meant it lasted 5 minutes so they could get him in and out of there. They did a tree lighting because they had a giant tree at the village, just like in all the parks, because that would be a nice thing to watch. You can meet and greet Santa. There was also a holiday jazz fest. So daily throughout the village, said the spirit is upbeat as special guest artists perform holiday jazz music continuously at various locations. They also had a holiday boat parade. So you would stand on the shore and they had boats decorated with lights that would drive by in the little lagoon there. So you could see that. And then, of course, they would have the holiday grand finale, which was a world premiere sing-along spectacle featuring the entire village entertainment cast, culminating in a holiday fireworks display.
Whoa,
so there were even fireworks, at the village. And, of course, Pleasure Island was open at this time, too. So they said the season explodes. This is only December 17th to the 24th, so Pleasure Island, they were not into it quite as much.
I'm also going to mention, as I flip through this book, in 1989, they had an Air Force One, which was the hot air balloon shaped like Mickey's head with a Santa hat on it. Yes, they had an Air
retrofitted, or they just
it looks like it was custom made. They went all in on the hot air balloons for a while.
Nice. So at Pleasure Island, you could have a rockin' cool Yule Christmas celebration with the hippest holiday happenings this side of the North Pole. Saint Nick and his musical entourage, bands and DJs will bring the musical holiday sounds of today and yesterday into the clubs and onto the streets. So even at Pleasure Island, if it was New Year's every day except for when it was New Year's and also Christmas for a brief period of time.
Well, and if I recall correctly, midnight at Pleasure Island for New Year's was 11 p.m., right? Not midnight? Didn't they do the fireworks at...
Yeah, it started to be midnight, and then they backed it up to 11.
Because people wanted...
It was probably at 10 on some nights,
home,
too. Like on a Wednesday. But
I want to look at a couple of these things before we wrap up of the stuff that people had submitted that maybe we didn't talk about. So let me just take a quick look. Anything that I may have pasted or didn't include. We had some folks We already mentioned Cast in Bronze, the Bell Carillon that was originally in Epcot and is now at Disney Springs. Lights of Winter. We had a couple folks mention the Country Bear Christmas Show, which mentioned briefly in passing, but for those who don't remember it, it was a seasonal offering where they would convert the whole show, add Christmas lights and decorations to the scenes, redress the characters, and the whole show was changed to Christmas stuff. Melvin and the folks on the wall had a red reindeer nose and the whole bit. It was a lot of fun. It was a great holiday refresher. And I recall reading one time on Facebook from an ex-Imagineer that it was $50,000 to install the show and $50,000 to switch it back. So $100,000 a year, and 1 year some bean counter decided it wasn't worth it. And that is why the show, there have been endless rumors I'd say it's probably been 15 years since it's run. But there have been endless rumors from time to time that it would return or it would be an exclusive to the Christmas show or so. And it just doesn't happen.
To your earlier point, Brian, you don't have to get people to the parks.
I know people don't like to hear us say that.
No, but I mean that's the reality of it right now. The specialty that you had in the past, that experience that people were getting was special, and now people will come for any amount and any.
They don't have to change a thing, and people still show up.
They don't have to, right? Exactly. You could just throw up 6 Christmas bulbs, and people will go, "Oh!"
They aim low, but most of our responses from folks were along the lines of Lights of Winter and Country Bears. Lake Buena Vista was mentioned several times. The red and green lights on the Contemporary, the poinsettia tree, and the Grand Floridian. And one of my favorite responses came from our friend 6 Miles Tall on Twitter, who said he misses trees and posted a picture of himself sitting in front of a poinsettia and greenery laden where the partner statue now stands in the hub, surrounded by trees and the castle behind him. But it's all, decorated for Christmas, the topiary and everything. So I get that. And a couple of people mentioned holiday wishes. The fireworks show that used to run. Now there is Minnie's Wonderful Christmas Time. And of course, as a Paul McCartney devotee, people either love or hate that song. I love the song. So that show, I happened to see it when I was at the Christmas party last month. And it opens and closes with Minnie singing Paul McCartney's Wonderful Christmas Time, which Paul wrote one day in August and recorded by himself and his farm in the UK. So it's become a Christmas
So MGM,
classic.
we talked about how they did the Christmas tree.
Yes.
But they never really did any looking back in my stuff, it's like they never really did any. They're just promoting whatever they had going on. They're like, oh, come see the Christmas tree and the Toy Story parade.
The original, I know I've mentioned this before, the original tree, if you recall, the tree was originally in front of the Chinese theater. The tree was decorated with vintage toys and had a vintage train set underneath it, a working vintage train set, which was the original tree.
For incoming photos.
Oh, I don't doubt it. And then eventually it was moved because of the stupid hat. It was moved outside the park to where the hat was originally possibly going to be. And where at one point people proposed it should be moved if they were like moving it outside the park, but keeping it. Oh, there you are. There's great displays here, Todd. This is going to be Those are like straight off the track Lionel sets. There's the Santa Fe set behind it.
Yep.
With some passenger cars, but very much in the vein of,
setting up
the Hollywood that never was but always will be.
Did Animal Kingdom ever do anything? I mean, I know they have a couple of things now.
Animal Kingdom had the tree, and they do some decorations, but like I really feel like MGM didn't do that full on. I mean, it wasn't until I don't know when they started doing this. Well, they always had the beautiful decorations, the shooting stars, and all that. If you remember that, they would put on the light poles on Hollywood Boulevard. And I think Sunset too. So they would decorate both of them, and then. I mean, people yell at me for not remembering the years, but they all run together. I mean, somewhere around 2015 is when they just like went all in and started, decorating around Echo Lake and redid all the decorations over the last 5-6 years in the park and changed to the Santa globes and everything that line the light poles now instead of the stars, and then started doing the projection mapping show. The Jingle Jangle Bam or whatever it's called on the Hollywood Tower Hotel. So they do, and it snows on Sunset Boulevard now, and so they kind of expanded it all the way through every bit of the park that isn't Star Wars Land and Toy Story Land. They did like specific stuff for Toy Story Land, I think, but it's so crowded in there, I would never notice a decoration if there was one up. It's just like I always walk through there just like, please don't run over a little kid, please don't run over a little kid, please don't run over a little kid, just let me get through.
Didn't we learn it was very important that you pronounce it jingle bell jingle jam
bam,
bam,
bam. Yeah,
bam.
It's like Admiral Lagasse,
Yes,
I saw that on the Chinese theater.
They do a projection show on the Chinese theater too.
It was Jingle Bell Jingle Bam, like the first year it came out.
Yeah,
was it?
I think that
was
that
where
was
it
the
was
Chinese
the first
theater
year?
one.
So,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
with Laser Dave.
with Laser Dave.
And,
but so what do they call the one that's on the Hollywood Tower Hotel now?
I don't know. Maybe they moved it since then, but I don't know. We saw that year, and we also saw the at Disney Springs the drone show over there.
I have
you
not
got to
seen the
see
drone
that.
show.
I
at Disney
did.
Springs,
I
no.
went specifically. Well, we went down because it was, kids didn't care if you went to Disney at that age, and we did all the Christmas stuff. So we literally park topped everywhere to catch it all that year. And the drone show was, it was 10 minutes, it was done, and we were like, that's it. But it was still pretty cool.
Was it impressive?
It was neat in itself. You saw it, and you're like, okay, I could see where you could go with this. But then they didn't go anywhere past.
I was gonna say, did they just do it that 1 year?
It might have been,
yeah.
That was it. And it was up there. You just, it was very cool to see. And you're like, okay, I want to see this at EPCOT or something else, but it just didn't go any farther.
I think it was like an Intel co-sponsorship or something.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
We stood right by Starbucks and the balloon thing right there and watched it. Pretty cool though.
I'll tell you the number of sponsorships we just said in that sentence alone.
They all got their money's worth.
They did.
They all got all
we
those
collect
shows
nothing
used to
from
be
them.
presented by somebody.
Just keep in mind all these are sponsored by Ricky Bobby Inc.
Yeah, GE always used to sponsor all the illuminations and their holiday things too at EPCOT. Their
Brought to
GE's
you
name is
by-
all over that stuff.
And I did see too, and we mentioned it, the Osborne lights on Residential Street. Until we started doing the show, I didn't realize how big of a deal that was to walk Residential Street and not do a car down there. I remember that in like 96, I think we might have seen that because we were there in November and saw that.
I remember when Osborne started originally where you could walk. It was not one way. There were multiple entrance points, and you could just wander through until it became this glut of people. And then at a certain point, they switched it to there's one way in, line up, and the cast member will let you onto the street. And then there's one direction you're allowed to walk, and that's it. You're not getting back out this way. You have to exit out over by Lights, Motors, Actions, Speed Stunt Car, or whatever it was called. And that was it. You entered over near the Muppet Vision, and then you had to exit out over at the Speedway, and that was it. Like, you did the loop.
I will say it was like my wife always says she was there when they shut down Osborne. She saw the last when they flipped the lights off.
She was there for the last night.
Yeah, because we happened to be coming for marathon weekend. It was there, and then that was it. And I mean, I saw it the next day, all just off, in
Yeah.
the day. But she was there that night, and it was like, that's it. That's the last time it'll be on, because we knew. I think at that point, Star Wars was coming.
Yeah, they had announced that it would be the last year for it, and sold a lot of last year merchandise. And
Yeah, exactly. But I was not there because I missed it.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for this, holiday interlude back into the histories and annals of Walt Disney World. Much appreciated. And it's interesting. Every year we talk about certain things and reminisce, and it's a wonderful time of the year for doing this. And what's neat is it's one of the few times a year where we actually go over a specific topic over and over. And I've always looked forward to these holiday episodes. I know by the time this airs, we'll already have done our Christmas party movie night, which is the 1983 Christmas parade. So we do owe people next year a little bit of a rundown of what that was, and we're also happy to say that we've got, because none of us know what to expect. I haven't watched it.
I'm watching it fresh with the audience. So
same here. That's what I'm gonna do. So, and then I'm happy to say that we have plenty of material. We have every single parade. I don't think we're missing a single one from 1983 up until present day now in our archives. The four of us will not be talking about the 2016 or the 2006, and when we get into the noughts and the teens, we will never be talking about those. We might be done by then.
Well, they're not parades anymore. I mean, they're variety.
That's true. They're more
shows
of they're variety spectacles.
Occasionally cut to a footage of the parade.
We're back to variety shows again.
We are back to variety shows.
We've gone full circle.
The difference is back in the when variety shows reigned supreme from the 50s to the early 80s, you knew everybody who was on them. Even there was a level of mild fame. I now watch these Disney things. Yeah. Here's
I don't know
so and so performing this song from such and such. I don't know who any of these people are.
No idea. No idea.
idea.
Yep. I'm with you on that one. I've been very confused multiple times, and I don't find that enjoyable anymore. So, but anyway, so thank you very much. How do you have anything in the pipeline for next year in terms of what we've got coming down the pipe in merchandise?
Yeah, I mean,
and
we're gonna give everybody a little break for during
save your money a little bit.
Christmas. Yeah, yes, exactly. Save up because as we get into next year, we'll be ready to do another flood of merchandise. We'll have I know we had probably another 3 or 4 things for Wonders of Life as we wrap that up that we'll be able to offer, and certainly as we go forward into our next sets of episodes, we'll have a lot of new stuff too. So
that particular pavilion it's amazing. It just lends so well to to the amount of what do you call it out there, the fodder for t-shirts and stuff.
Well, it's not just one attraction; it's like 20 attractions in one. So.
Yeah, and then all sorts of little things that are going on in the pavilion that you can play off of. So
yeah, absolutely.
But looking forward to that. So, but as always, we thank you, our listeners. It's been another wonderful year. It's hard to believe that we started this back in 2015, something like that. 14th or I don't remember anymore. Yes, exactly, that year. But without the listeners, we wouldn't be here today. So we thank you for your continued support, not only through writing into us in the donations, but making sure that you're heard, and we know that what we're producing out there is something that you want to hear, because Brian always said we want to put on a show, whether it's a podcast or an event that we ourselves would want to attend. So by you guys attending, we feel we're reaching the hearts of a lot of people.
I hope you particularly enjoyed our discussion of snow earlier.
Yes,
living
yes. And
in the Northeast with
snow. And how I'll tell you what.
Wash my hair with snow.
Snow.
How we got some snow the other day, and I'm gonna put a little bit into a bottle and send it down to you, so you can have some Northeast snow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Put some dry ice.
Would you like it on a shaker top, so you can put it on a salad or anything?
Send him enough so when his kids come back Christmas morning, he can just beam them with a snowball, right?
That would
the
be,
actual Northeast snow. You want to know what it's like,
exactly.
kid?
This is what it is. Poof.
I'll just throw the bottle at him with the water inside.
No, we'll pack it in dry ice so it stays frozen.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I get you now.
There you go.
That's even better.
Yeah.
And it's a real snow.
Right.
Here, Phoenix, you wanted to know what snow was like.
Fly it down in a cooler on a plane.
That's how you wake them up Christmas morning. Just dump the whole cooler on top.
The whole cooler right on top of them. Yeah. Look what FedEx bought you.
Santa left it for you.
That's right. But all serious, thank you to everybody, all of our listeners and gentlemen. Thank you to all of you, three of you, for another wonderful year. Looking forward to the next year, and may all your Christmas dreams come true. And I know Santa will bring you what you want. I know, Brian, you're going to have that orange this year, probably.
We'll have that orange one way or another. So,
there we go.
And then I usually try to make it to Florida before honeybell season ends.
No, that's
in early
right.
February, so I try to make it down there for my winter sojourn so I can get some honeybells.
Yep, that's right. All right, well, to all of our listeners, once again, thank you very much. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you're celebrating.
Joyous Noel.
Happy Hanukkah. If we catch you in time for that.
It is the second night of Hanukkah, so.
It is the second night, yeah.
Yes.
Happy Kwanzaa and whatever else it is that you're celebrating.
And Happy New Year.
Celebrate it well. Yeah, and Happy New Year, yeah. Celebrate it well, celebrate it safe. Enjoy, everybody, and we will see you in the next year. Thanks a lot, all. And Brian, take us out.
Follow the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society on Twitter and Instagram at LBV History and on the web at lbvhistory.org. For all things Retro Disney World, including exclusive merchandise, visit us on the web at RetroWDW.com and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RetroWDW. And follow our hosts, Todd McCartney, on Twitter at WDWMS, Hal Bowers on Twitter and Instagram at GoAwayGreen, JT Cougar on Twitter at LS1JT, and on YouTube at Rubber City Motoring, and on the web at rubbercitymotoring.com. And you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Brian P. Miles. Retro Disney World is the monthly podcast of the Lake Buena Vista Historical Society, a nonpartisan, nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and is not affiliated in any way with the Walt Disney Corporation or any of its subsidiary or affiliated entities.